We welcome in our 1320 Kings insider and creator of the Kings Beat, the Hammer, James Ham.
My rebuttal is that I would like to see Zion and Brandon Ingram stay on the court long enough to actually play with each other, to build chemistry, to make this thing work.
Very much fair. I'd pick either one of them either way. Sight unseen.
Oh, I like Ingram.
Unseen. I'm taking Zion.
You want Ingram over Zion?
It's a safer bet. I mean, if you're building a team around a superstar, then sure, Zion is young and he has all kinds of potential. But if I'm building a team that I think, like a team like the Kings, where it's going to be all-star level but not superstar level players, but really, really good players, and I think if I can put 3 or 4 of them together, then I would take Ingram because, I just think Zion, he's too unique in what he does, but he requires the ball all day long, and he really does upset the balance of everything. I mean, look at what CJ McCollum has become there. After how good he was last year, he's averaging 17 points a game. Shooting percentages are down across the board.
But the team is significantly better.
They're unstoppable.
Well, it is today, but where is it tomorrow? Where is it 3 weeks from now when Zion could go out for another 2 months? That's just kind of the way his career has gone.
He could go out, but he also could not go out.
I hope no one dislikes me as much as James Ham appears to dislike Zion Williamson.
Zion and Carmelo.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're going to have a player that's that good and requires that much attention, it's not just that he requires that much attention from the opposing team. He actually requires that much attention on your own team. You have to build something around him. And if you can't guarantee that he's going to be there, and this is where I'll make the distinction. It's not like Kawhi Leonard, which you could put Kawhi on any team in the league and he'll figure out how to just drop in, be great defensively. And so if he's gone a bunch, sure, it hurts you. But when he's there, it's not like you have to change everything because he is there. And with Zion, it's different. I mean, look at his usage. Look at all the assists he's getting. I mean, that means he's got the ball in his hands the whole game. And it's not easy to play with a player like that.
All right, I'll go out on a limb. I don't think either one of them are coming to Sacramento.
No.
Don't say that. Just relax. No. Just give it time. Give it time. We're going to talk about the Kings for the next hour. But before we did that, I just want to hear what James has to say about Phoenix. And not like the team, but like Chris Paul specifically.
Their little whiny behavior.
Everything that happened over the weekend with those guys. Like, where do you stand on that? Was Zion out of pocket? Or does Phoenix have a legit gripe? Or, are they doing a little too much?
Yeah, I just think that's guys trying to be like fake tough guys. Like, come on. Like, it's just a game. I would bring it up. Like, wasn't it A-Rod that walked over the A's pitching mound and Josh Donaldson gave him an earful years ago? Like, there are some unwritten rules that, putting on a dunk like that is a little outlandish. I thought early in the season when the
crowd loved it.
Yeah. I thought when the Kings ran up the score on Brooklyn, there was probably 5 3-pointers that went in that didn't need to be shot. And it is what it is at this point. Like, the league is built where you can do that. And, I think it's good. Like, the fans like it. You're right. Like, but next time you come down the lane and you're playing against the Phoenix Suns, you might think twice, because I don't think that they took too kindly to it.
This in from Adrian Wojnarowski. The Sacramento Kings will be in Detroit on Friday. Detroit Pistons guard Kade Cunningham plans to have season-ending surgery on his left shin.
Ouch.
That's scary.
Cunningham is expected to make a full recovery ahead of training camp. Again, Kade Cunningham having season-ending shin surgery, which is something I don't think I've heard before.
I don't either. That's terrifying to me. Shin injury. Jeez.
Yeah, I don't know that one at all.
What are you doing surgery on?
I have no idea.
Yeah, there's got to be something there. Like, I've had shin splints quite a few times, and that's extremely painful. But I don't know what it is that he's got going on there, unless it's like stress fractures or something. I don't know.
Oh man.
Get well soon, Cade.
Yeah, that's tough. Hey, don't worry, kid. Get your shin better. We're going for Scooter Victor. Hang it, because man, right. I don't. That team was already tough, man, it's just got a whole lot. It's got a whole lot tougher for that squad.
Yeah.
Again, the Kings will be there Friday, so let's get into that. They've got a couple of stops to make before we get there. James, let's just kind of move in chronological order. And I know a lot of people want to hear about the trade rumors and stuff that are out there. We'll get to that stuff, and I'm going to say trade rumors in quotation marks. But let's start with the good, James, because there was a little bit of good and a little bit of bad since the last time we talked. Let's start with the good and that fourth quarter closeout that they had against the Cleveland Cavaliers. 10 straight stops, James, and the birth of the defensive player of the game chain.
It's like they had it made. Like,
is that your chain? That was my first thought. Is like, I think James Ham has one of those.
Yeah. No, I told you mine spins. Like, I've got one, but it spins.
I see you. I see you.
Yeah.
That's that old John Cena spinner chain.
Yeah. I have that one, and I have one that looks like a giant clock. Yep. So I've got both of those. Look, this team is fun, and I think that's the biggest takeaway. I'm not sure that a defensive player of the game thing is something that I would promote on a daily basis, because I don't think we saw it against the next team, because there was no defensive player of the game. Everyone got torched. And so, like, what does it mean, and how do you, like, bring that from, maybe a defensive player of the week for the team, that would make sense. But either way, the 19-0 run to finish the game, the 10 stops, just absolutely impressive. It's the best stretch that, like, 4.5 minutes this team has had all season long. And, to be honest, like, that's a really good Cavs team, and they're missing Donovan, but the Kings were missing De'Aaron. And when you can go into that building when they're 11-1 at home and knock them off, that was they're the number 3 seed in the Eastern Conference, and really, like, dominate the last 5 minutes of a game. I just don't know, that's the most impressive game that I've seen from this team in a long, long time.
Did you think they were teetering on being able to make a run like that in that game? Because I was not thinking that. That came out of nowhere. But sometimes you can see, like, a team, like, man, if they could just get 1 or 2 stops and then follow that up with some buckets, they could really get on a roll and explode. Did you see that coming in any way, shape, or form on Friday night?
No, to be honest with you, I thought that they had let the game slip away. I thought that that's where that game was going. It looked like they were heading for a dark place. But that's how those runs go, because it's not just about baskets. So we saw that, when they were trying to fight back last night. You saw them, like, every time they started to fight back, it's fine. You can get something going offensively, but if you let the other team score every time as well, then you're never going to catch up. And that was what I think, it was kind of the sneaky thing. Like, you saw it building, like, ooh, they're really good offensively right now, and then you kind of missed the fact that they had, like, the big blocks or the big steal or the tight defense that forced a turnover. And so I was super impressed by just the way again, to have a run like that. It's not just that you scored 19 points in the final 4.5 minutes of a game, which in itself is absolutely incredible. It's that you stop the other team from scoring at all. And that means you didn't foul. You didn't put them on the line, because they didn't score a bucket at all. They didn't score anything. So, yeah, really, really impressive. I didn't see it coming, but it's good to see that they're kind of building towards that.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the other side of the euphoria Kings fans had on, and the Kings in general had on Friday night, was what we sat through yesterday. Arguably the Kings' worst game of the season, perhaps inarguably the Kings' worst beginning to end game of the season yesterday agained New York. And Mike Brown's, starting to share his frustration a little bit more regularly in these post-game press conferences, whereas yesterday he was just like, they didn't execute the game plan at all. He said something similar following the Bucks game, where he was like, they never felt us, like they dictated everything. I like that approach from Mike Brown, but what did you see yesterday watching the Kings and the Knicks?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I saw your tweet that said the Kings just aren't even trying to get into their offense. Is that what it was? You said something like that.
Yeah.
And that's what it looked like. They just went away from everything that's worked all season long. And it's something that when tough times happen, a lot of players regress to whatever it is, whoever they have been as a player in the past. And that's what I kind of saw. Like I saw selfish play, I saw just bad play, sloppy play, um, guys just being ineffective, and like, look, this team, we've talked about it, they just aren't good enough to overcome like when major pieces just disappear completely. And for as much as I've called out, like the guys who have disappeared this season, we had the Harrison Barnes stretch where he was bad. We had the De'Aaron Fox stretch where we now know he was fighting through an injury, but he didn't look right for 7 games and really like took a step backwards. Kevin Herter's had a stretch where he just can't find a basket. Well, right now we're in a stretch where Malik Monk hasn't been effective at all the last 3 games. And I don't care how many points he scores, it's just it's not effective. And you watch Mike Brown pull him off the court so quick. Like if you don't have De'Aaron Fox on the court, you need Malik Monk. You need Malik Monk to play 35 minutes. And you haven't been able to leave him out there at all. And it's been really, really tough to watch. And it's he's not locked in mentally. It's the little mistakes where he just hands the ball over. He did it multiple times in that game yesterday, where he just gave up a ball in crucial spots where you're starting to build some momentum. They put him in the game, they get killed. They pull him out, they start to rally. They put him in the game, they get killed again. And I don't blame Mike Brown. That's what you had to do, especially with Terrence Davis coming back after a couple of games off with a back injury.
What do you attribute that to with Malik? Part of me feels like that's kind of and Terrence Davis in the same boat. It's kind of who they are. They're kind of up and down guys. At least offensively, with whether the shot is falling. They'll have 7 games where they're playing great, and then 2 or 3 games where they struggle a little bit. Or do you look at it as a situation where he's probably doing a little bit more than he should because Fox is out or isn't 100% or anything like that, and that's kind of affecting his game as well, where he's thinking that he has to do a whole lot more than he probably needs to do, and it's affecting his shot, it's affecting his whole game, really.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like each of these players are different in why they start to struggle. Could be that just an accumulation of minutes, or it could be that Mike Brown went almost kicked over a table telling everybody that you're the 6th man of the year. And that just puts some pressure on him that he didn't see coming. It could be that like a lot of positive things have been written about him and said about him over the last couple of weeks. And he's just, bought into it a little bit. But at the end of the day, like he'll be fine. Like the Kings will be fine. This is just another hiccup where you have a bad game where and 2 out of 3, but 2 out of 3 against one of them is one of the most difficult teams to defend in the league and a great defensive team in the Milwaukee Bucks. And then, another team that has a very unique player in Julius Randle. And I thought the fact that Julius Randle was just an absolute acting the fool and got thrown out of the game, like I didn't understand that. Like, what are you doing? Like there was no reason. You're up a bunch. But the fact that the Kings couldn't use that as motivation and catapult themselves to victory over the Knicks, that was just crazy. And especially like it was a weird touch foul.
I think they tried. RJ shut him down. Like if you look back at that first possession, like the Kings were they were aggressive defensively on that first possession after Julius Randle got to, and then RJ Barrett hits a 3. And I feel like it was 11, but I could be wrong. And the 3 took it to 14, and it was like, oh. And I don't feel like they ever that run that we saw against Cleveland, that we've seen against the Warriors, that we've seen so many times, it never materialized. They never got enough shots to drop.
Yeah, this team has been able to take a punch all season long, so it was kind of surprising to see them take a punch early, but stay in the game. Like even when they weren't playing well in the first half, they still kept it within reasonable 10 to 15 points most of the game. But then in that third quarter when they took a couple of punches and they just didn't have a counter. Or when they did have a counter, they couldn't get the stop. Really just an odd focus game. And, like, look, how many times do we need to see Domantas Sabonis take the slender dudes down in the post and just dominate them? And then all of a sudden you see his teammates just go away from it. Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you not getting the at the rim shot that he's shooting 70% on? And it slows the game down and it gets you an easy bucket. Why aren't you doing that? And I know the Knicks fouled him quite a few times, and he was missing a bunch of free throws.
Yeah.
And again, that's one of those games where, like complacency, when a team is complacent, you can point to like a couple of stats that really stand out. And number one, free throw misses, which the Kings were horrible. Number two, offensive rebounds, and number three, offensive rebounds that lead to second chance points. And the Kings got killed in all three categories, and that's what you could see happening anytime they got to stop. They just didn't have that extra little bit to get the 50-50 ball, to end the offensive possession for the Knicks. And next thing you know, they're giving up a 2, they're giving up a 3, and it's backbreaking when you do the work, and then it doesn't pay off.
And it's one of those things though too, James and Damian, where there's a lot of potential reasons for what happened on Sunday against New York, but sometimes like this is just what happens. It's not an indictment on the team or the way they played. I think we saw it a couple of times in that game where they tried to lock in. They were, trying to pick up the energy on the defensive end. They were trying to, enforce their will on the game, and the shots just didn't fall. And the Knicks shots did fall. You know what I mean? And sometimes it is that simple with these guys where they're trying mentally, they see what's going on, but they just can't
It's
get
make
it
or miss
going.
league.
Make or miss league for sure, but they just can't find that rhythm and get into that rhythm of being able to overturn those games. And that's where I put yesterday's game at, and I think it's a little shocking because we haven't seen them have those moments much, if at all, this year. But I think that's what yesterday was for me. It's just couldn't get it going, couldn't find a groove.
Yeah, and I'll point out too, there are games where the Kings finish with like 32 assists or 35 assists, and I can go back in my head and remember like a good 5 or 6 shots that were missed, and it's usually Sabonis. Sabonis, like, he's the guy who averages what 6.5 assists a game, and he should be at like 8, because for some reason dudes miss wide open shots for him on occasion. Um, but in this particular game, when you look at 19, and it was a struggle to get to 19. Like there weren't a bunch of assists left on the table. This team just didn't play their style of game. They allowed the Knicks to dictate how they were going to play, and it's a sign of a team that again has tired legs. It's a little complacent. That isn't just 100% for that day, and it's a team that, like, when you take De'Aaron Fox off of that roster, it looks a lot different. And the toughest defender gets to slide over and get a little bit of a break. Doesn't have to have nearly the athletic, scoring, dynamic scorer that Fox is, to go up against, and it changes the whole dynamic of the game for the Kings.
We've speculated that part of the reason the bench has been struggling the last couple of games is because of the absence of De'Aaron Fox. Talked about Malik Monk. Malik Monk and De'Aaron play. They're on the floor together quite a bit, and it feels like Malik has been impacted by De'Aaron's absence. And to be clear, I think the whole bench has, but perhaps Malik in particular, where I thought Malik might be able to elevate a little bit with De'Aaron out, particularly in the playmaking category. It seems to have been the exact opposite.
Yeah, and all the bench, like, the problem that you have with the bench is that the way that this offense works is if your starters are really good and your top 6 guys are really good, it allows your number 7, 8, 9, 10 guys to just fill roles. And then when that's not happening, when those starters aren't having that kind of impact on a game, it really makes it difficult for this group of players to like step up and be something that they're not. And again, if you're not passing the ball, like, Chemezi Metu is not going to get a bucket. Like, he has been feasting on the lobs and on the pick and roll, like in the DHO pick and rolls, and like there's a lot of things that are going on, that create opportunities for some of these guys. When you take away the flow of the offense and you make them just, like we saw a lot of dribbling. I mean, this is the first game all season where they scored under 100 points. And that just, it really hurts those other guys because they're not guys who are going out there and creating stuff for themselves for the most part.
Casey, before you
go ahead.
jump in there, let's give away tickets to see the Sacramento Kings take on the Washingtons. 916-909-1320. Caller number 3 will get you all set up. The Sacramento Kings, December 23rd at the Golden One Center against Washington. Again, caller number 3 right now, 916-909-1320. We've got tickets to this game for you all week long. Casey, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Robert Foster in the chat brings up a good point. He says if the Kings had played the Knicks on Friday and the Cavs yesterday, the vibes would be so much different. I tend to agree with them because I didn't think that they played that well on Friday night, but they had that incredible stretch, to finish it off. But it was all what they say, sunshine and lollipops or something like that after that finish. I didn't think they played that well, but the fact of the matter remains they got the win, right?
Dallas Cowboys and Houston Texans, all you got to do is win.
That's all you got to do is win.
That's it.
And I think that's what this road trip is about, because I was just talking to Damian about how I think all these guys are going to play so much better when they get home. I think they're going to have to find a way to gut games out like they did in Cleveland 1 or 2 more times for the remaining 3 games of this road trip and just find a way. I don't know if it's going to look pretty this entire road trip, but they've got to find a way. Sunday, they couldn't find a way. And that's kind of what frustrates people a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm going to point out a couple of things that I'm seeing like in the chatty house here that just to explain some of the things that are happening. So like the Kings signed Trey Burke to the Stockton Kings. They can't just bring Trey Burke up. They don't have a roster spot for him, and he's not on a 2-way contract. He's not even eligible for a 2-way contract. So there's always a possibility that they could waive a player and pick up a player. But Trey Burke is more there to work with these young guys and get them even more at like sort of NBA level experience. And then, like when we look at the way that like this whole road trip is going to go, like this was always going to be really difficult. And I know people like they didn't like it when I said, hey, you've guaranteed that you're coming home at 500, by winning that game against the Cavs, you guaranteed that the Sacramento Kings will be 500 by the end of the road trip. And people are like, oh man, they can be way over that. It's like, hey, just wait a sec. This is a really, really difficult road trip. Even the final game against the Detroit Pistons, like that's an incredibly difficult game because it's the getaway game. It's the final game of a 6-game road trip. You haven't been home in like 2 weeks. You haven't seen your family. You haven't, like you don't know what you're going home to. It's chaos. And that game is always really, really ragged. So just some of the things that like people need to keep in mind when they're watching this team. They can play really good and still lose to a good team. And that could have happened against the Cavs. I don't know that the Knicks are a really good team, but they certainly
playing
punch
well.
the Kings in the face.
And they're playing well.
They're playing
Is
well.
that 4 wins in a row for them now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this, James, that I believe the Sacramento Kings are capable of competing with every team they step on the floor with. I do believe that they're capable of. They've shown enough this year that they can beat good teams. Like they can win. They can win. Philadelphia. We're looking at the name Philadelphia, not necessarily the way that they're playing this year. Philadelphia, I think they're the same record as the Kings, maybe one game worse. Yeah, they're 1 game worse than the Kings. Toronto's right in the same category. I'm thinking about this back-to-back like everybody else is, but we saw Joe go for 53 last night, his second 50-plus game in the last handful of weeks, but that's a team that's still trying to figure out who and what they are. Joe's playing phenomenal. The Philadelphia 76ers are not. Toronto's a 500 team. Like I think we still look at the Kings as the Kings of last year and the year before and the year before. In this 25 games, James, I believe the Kings can compete with every single team they step on the floor with.
They can compete, but can they win? I mean, these road games are tough. Like, and we can say,
and you need moments like you had in the Cleveland game, which
yeah.
you can get. I know it doesn't feel like it, but every once in a while something can go the Kings' way.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to find a way to steal a game, especially this back-to-back. You got to find a way to steal one game. And if you can do that, then, you might have the momentum to bring this thing home at 3-3. But it's not going to be easy. I mean, the way Joel Embiid is playing right now is like off the charts. I mean, he's like, it's not just like MVP. He's playing like one of the great players of all time over the last, like, I think it's 10 games. It's absolutely crazy what he's doing. And that's going to be tough because especially like we saw Alex Len miss time. He missed the New York game with a non-COVID related illness. Well, the Kings might need Alex Len. They might need 6 fouls from a big guy to try to slow down Embiid. And that Philadelphia team, they weren't good early in the year, but they have been better, a lot better lately. And while they're searching for themselves with like still 2 superstar players or the remnants of 2 superstar players, and then
One and a half.
some really, really good role players, like Tobias Harris. And their guard play has been a lot better, even though, they're struggling with injuries still. So yeah, that's an impressive team. And then what do you do when you go up against, the next night you go up against one of the longest teams in the league? Is like playing the Cavs all over again. It's not a great shooting team, if I'm not mistaken, but still it's a team that's extremely dangerous with all kinds of defensive talent. And yeah, if there's a team that, like, if I were to envision something with the Sacramento Kings and making a trade, that Toronto team is one of the ones on the short list that I'm going to and trying to prize some of their players, because number one, they're coached really well, but number two, they have a bunch of guys who fit exactly what the Kings need, and guys who fit what the Kings need and actually play, as opposed to some of the guys that with like the Orlando Magic that fit what the Kings need, but are they really good basketball players, or are they just putting up stats on a bad team?
Kings should go get Jonathan Isaac.
Oh, jeez.
That was sarcasm for those that are new to the show. Okay, you went there. Let's go there. We'll come back. We'll talk about the trade quote rumors that are out there. Kings being linked to various guys. A lot of them are on that Toronto Raptors team that you were just talking about. And I'll mention this: 76ers lost to the Rockets like 3 games ago.
Mm-hmm. Raptors lost to the Magic last night.
I don't know what that has to do with anything. I'm just pointing that out.
Happens.
We'll come back. James Ham, 1320 Kings Insider, and creator of the Kings Beat, Manny the Mannequin. I want you to tell me about Manny the Mannequin as well, and we'll do that when we return here on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320. Clear. Manny the Mannequin.
Manny the Mannequin. It's good stuff, man. I like this team is fun. Just like people just need to make sure that they don't get too high and too low, and it's kind of like the basic tenet that you always have to keep pointing out with this team: never too high, never too low. But they got something cooking, so and I think they're going to be active.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
I think they'll always. Yeah. Okay, that's what we'll do. Active is the word.
Active.
How was your weekend, Hammer?
It was good. I bought a new couch for my bar, so I have that for Christmas party.
Very nice.
I needed a 3-man couch. I had a 2-man couch with a big middle. Me and my son sit at all the time and watch football and soccer.
Mm-hmm.
So this morning I had to drag a couch upstairs, which wasn't easy, especially a couch with a bunch of mechanics. But I got a new couch delivered, so that's good. I don't know. Just been cleaning the house, getting ready for guests and stuff like that.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't have to move an entire couch upstairs. I had
No
to
smoke in the purple beam. Thanks, Johnny G.
Oh, what you mean? We can smoke the purple. It's actually not called the purple beam. It's called light the beam.
Light the beam.
Yeah. I'm just reading one of these guys here.
What's the most difficult thing you guys have ever moved? Like moving furniture, moving into a house.
Oh man.
When I worked on the downtown plaza, I had to move sheetrock from one end to that place, like all day long, and a lot of it was sheetrock for elevators and escalators. So anytime you have a hole like that, it requires like It's like it's either 3/4 of an inch or it's an inch thick, and it's not as wide as regular sheetrock, but it's heavy as hell. And so, yeah, I've had and we're talking about like 10-foot sheets, so you're moving up and down the downtown plaza, like going over ramps, and you feel like you're Austin Powers stuck in the like in the hallway the whole time, and I don't know.
It's a lot. I moved what's not a dual sink, but 2-sink bathroom counter.
Oh, a vanity.
Yeah. Man, I didn't think I was gonna make it, man. I had to go upstairs. I didn't think I was gonna make it. That was the toughest thing I've ever had to move in my life.
We had a giant one that went upstairs here at our house, and it came fully assembled. So that's not good. With the countertop, like a marble countertop on top. And
ours
luckily,
was too.
I wasn't here. Like we had a guy helping us out with tile, and he called his son, who is like a big football player, and they came over and got it upstairs. But it was like 400 pounds going straight upstairs.
Oh well, yeah, there was that. There was that. I had to move that from one house to another.
Yeah.
Didn't stop at any stop signs. Didn't get out of first gear. I said, I just want to get here, man. I just want to get
here. I was gonna say, don't ever underestimate moving a mattress by yourself.
Oh, yeah, that ain't easy.
Oh yeah.
No.
That ain't easy.
I honestly thought the mattress I moved, this was like a couple of weeks ago, into just a different room that's just across the hall, was gonna send me over the barricade down, crashing down to the stairs.
It like gets on you, and you can't get it off.
You can't stop it. Yeah, like you're stuck.
And you're hoping that it doesn't like get under your ribs and start lifting you up off the ground. You're like, oh no, it's got me. It's got me.
I was like, this is it. It's like the Royal Rumble. I'm getting tossed over by the mattress.
You gotta. Yeah. You gotta.
You need like Shawn Michaels in '95. Yeah.
You need two people, because I'll slide a mattress.
But sometimes that doesn't work. Especially a king size mattress, man. That thing just like it's got a mind of its own.
I don't know. I'm not doing that. I'm twin size mattress, bro.
No one believes you when you do this.
About that king size.
No one believes you when you do this. No one thinks you're sleeping on a twin size mattress.
I'm on a twin size.
That's only when Jazz throws you out the room. Knock it off.
We have a pool table upstairs that required a lot of manipulation.
So our guy told us, don't move this. Don't even attempt. Like, you need to call us and we'll do it. Like, you can't.
Well, that's what I did. I paid a dude.
There's no way.
No, you can't. Like, he was like, because he was like, what do we do if we move this? He was like, you don't. You call us. Like, you do not move this at all. Yeah.
God bless the pool table mover guys. They're an odd breed. They're like the guy in your area that catches rattlesnakes. It's just an odd dude, like just a really different guy. But the pool table mover guy is the same. They come in, they literally are looking at like the most ridiculous thing in the world. How am I going to get this thing out of this building? And everyone is saying,
hang on, James. James. That was a fun commercial break conversation on twitch.tv/ESPN1320 and youtube.com/ESPN1320. If you want to catch up on it, if you want to hear Kenny Caraway lie to the 300 some odd people watching, you're telling lies to everybody.
Nothing about no king size mattress, moving on king size mattress. I don't know nothing about that.
Yeah, you don't know anything about moving it because you're smart enough to hire people to move those mattresses for you. You were busy moving the motorcycle.
I had to I moved the motorcycle. I'm telling you, that vanity, I didn't think I was gonna make it. I thought I'm coming home to see you, Elizabeth. The thing's gonna fall right back on me up these stairs, and that's gonna be all she wrote. That was terrifying. But I did take the memory foam off our mattress.
Yeah. Okay.
Did take the memory foam off. That was easy, but yeah, I'm putting that back on as soon as I get the word.
Okay.
I may never get the word, but
you may not.
As soon as I get the
memory
word,
foam gonna be your new bed. You're gonna lay the memory foam out on the floor, and that's where Kenny Caraway gonna sleep. All right, Hammer, you brought it up, man. Let's get into it. There are there's chatter like the trade deadline is 2 months away. The kickoff of the trade season, as we've dubbed this last year, is just a couple of days away, December 15th. And it appears that the Lakers of this year are in the Kings position of last year, where their entire fan base has their hopes up that some big deal is going to be struck at midnight on December 15th. But the Kings have been mentioned in various reports, along with virtually every other team in the league, involving the Toronto Raptors, a team that you brought up right before the commercial break. I'm not, and maybe you guys can hit me to this, I'm not sure why Toronto would want to blow it up right now instead of build, but Pascal Siakam's name is referenced once again. OG Anunoby's name is referenced once again. James, what do you make of all this?
Yeah, I mean, it's wild to see some of the names that are being mentioned that could potentially be on the market right now. I think the big three, what we're talking about, Kuzma, we're talking about OG Anunoby, and
Siakam.
And John Collins. Like these are the big three moving pieces right now that everyone's looking at.
Collins bigger than Siakam? I would really like to quit John Collins. When is it officially not John Collins season?
Yeah, but have you seen Siakam's name being mentioned?
Well, I maybe I'm just looping him in with the Raptors.
Yeah, I think sort of the word there with Toronto is that they could potentially look to move on from OG Anunoby. Because they want to go young and build the team around Scotty Barnes. But my goodness.
Anunoby's like 24.
He's 25. He's 25. He actually, and if you look at, that's the type of player the Kings are looking for. Once again, it's
OG getting a discount at the movies, I guess. Jeez.
Yeah, it's an undervalued contract. Yeah. So, I mean, he's only making, I think it's 18 or 19 million bucks a year for this year and next. And then he's got a player option for the third year. So it's kind of like the Sabonis deal where you're looking at like a year and a half, and then you're going to have to make some really difficult decisions. And the thing about him is he's just become a really good offensive player, to go with the fact that he's one of the best defensive players in the league. And he's kind of Kawhi Leonard light. But at this point, like I would take OG over Kawhi just because he plays and Kawhi doesn't. And so he's a phenomenal talent, and he's also a player who does a really good job off of cuts. He's really good on the catch and shoot three in the corner. And I think he would fit in perfectly, not just his style of play, but he would give you that. I mean, he averages 2.4 steals per game. And while we talk about blocks all the time and how the Kings are one of the worst block teams in the league, or I think they are the worst team in the league when it comes to blocks, I would take a guy who averages 2.4 steals over a guy who averages 2.4 blocks any day of the week, because a steal is a straight turnover, where a block, it just isn't. Like there are plenty of blocks to go right back in the bucket. So I think if they could get him, you got to figure out what it is that Toronto would potentially look for in that deal. But like I'm stacking stuff, like whatever it takes to get a guy like that, I would be in if I were the Kings.
I agree 100%. I mean, Toronto's a little disappointing this year for what they probably expected. They're 13-14 right now. But that's the other part of the question that I have, James, is like, number one, what we'll just say for you personally, just you're not reporting, just speaking personally, what would you be willing to give up to get an OG or to get a Kyle Kuzma? Or maybe those things aren't related, but what are you willing to give up?
Yeah, and then I think those are two really different.
Yeah, they're two very, very different questions.
Only because of the contract status of Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah. And with Kuzma too, like the problem though with Kuzma is he has a slightly overinflated sense of worth, and he's going to want to get paid. The other thing he wants is a major market because he thinks he's Hollywood. And that's fine. Like
you ain't seen the beam? This is a major market.
And to be fair to him, he said he'd be cool coming to Sacramento back when he thought he was getting traded to Sac.
Well, he had to say that because they told him he was being traded to
when
Sacramento.
He didn't have any control. Now he has all.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's fair too. I'm just saying this was like the aftermath of it.
Yeah.
This was a couple months later.
I know.
He's like, man, I wasn't tripping off Sacramento. Like, it's not far from LA. Like, it's cool.
Yeah,
it's not too far. It's a major market.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like, look, the Kings should be active, but if you're asking me what it is that, the Kings have to offer, let's just say that the Kings look at their team right now and say, we don't want to give up Harrison Barnes. We know he has some value, but we don't think he has value in a trade to Toronto, where they're trying to reset their roster and do something different, right? So if there's a way to get away from that, get into that trade without giving up Harrison Barnes, and you can come back with OG Anunoby, then it's going to cost you. And I don't know if it's going to be 1 or 2 or 3 first round picks, but it's probably at a minimum going to be a pretty good, first, and then expiring deals or other contracts that make sense. Like if I'm the Kings and I'm offering, let's just say Rashawn Holmes, and you can do a deal for OG Anunoby, Rashawn Holmes, Alex Len, and say Trey Lyles, or you could even go like Davion Mitchell to sort of sweeten the deal. But what is it going to cost you on top of that? And it's at least 1 first round pick. And I'm
With
going to
those
get
players, it's going to be like 7 first-round
Yeah.
picks.
well, yeah, but I don't know because some of those guys are like useful pieces that they can use right now because Toronto has been interested in Rashawn Holmes in the past, and they still don't have a true center to put so they can knock Siakam over to the 4. But the problem that the Kings have, and we can argue this all day long with the Chatty House or not, but the Kings can't trade a second round pick and a first round pick until like 2000. I think it's 2028, right? So it's locked up 24, 25, 26. You can't trade 27 because of the Stepien. So you're literally looking at like having to go out to the 2028. Now that doesn't mean that the Kings couldn't have pick swaps and other things that they throw in. The Kings still have a bunch of second round picks that they could throw in. So you just have to, what is the market? How competitive do you have to do? Do you have to be to go get a guy like that? And how many teams are going to jump on board and try to get in on the deal? And, I think there's possibility that the Kings could take a swing here. But even like when we talk about Harrison Barnes, if you were to throw Harrison Barnes in there, that doesn't, if they're truly looking to reset their roster, that doesn't have value to them unless they're going to just flip Harrison Barnes again. So maybe that works in a 3-team deal where, the Kings are sending Harrison somewhere else and you're taking back. But you have to
I
worry
want to
about
make
this.
sure I'm clear on what you're saying. You're saying Harrison doesn't help their team. He winds up just being the money falling off.
Yeah, just an expiring contract. And when you look at OG Anunoby, he's only got 1 year left after this year, anyways, and then the third year is a player option. So that's what I mean. Like there isn't a tremendous amount of value in Harrison Barnes, unless you love Harrison Barnes and you're going to try to use this Larry Bird rights to lock him up long term once you acquire him, and that would be, you know, something that would make a lot of sense. And I don't know what OG's overall value is. Like I think a lot of teams like they'd have to think long and hard. He has had some injury history. He had the torn ACL coming into the NBA, which is why the Kings were sitting at number 20 in the 2017 NBA draft, and they chose Harry Giles over OG Anunoby, who went number 23, I believe. And that's just one of those deals where you were gambling on one guy with a knee injury, and you didn't know which one the Kings were going to gamble on. They both had a bunch of potential.
I'm taking all this in right now, James. Taking all this in, and I'm just trying to figure out how this can get done. And quite honestly, to get a guy like OG, and probably I know people are down on him, but I'm just being real. To get a guy like Kuzma, I don't know if you can get them without Harrison Barnes. Just being real. Like if they're available, I feel like there might be trades that could beat Alex Len, Rashawn Holmes, Trey Lyles in a second rounder. So
I actually I hear what you're saying. I would switch it up and I would say, can you get one of those deals done without Keegan Murray? And I think that that's a more realistic question, because the Harrison Barnes thing, like, look, if someone loves Harrison Barnes, they can go get him in the offseason. He's a free agent. And in this situation, if you're trading with a team that's giving up and trying to go backwards, then he doesn't have the same value unless, again, they're going to try to flip him again afterwards. But, like, I get what you're saying, but the question becomes, do you do the Tyrese Halliburton. Do you do the Tyrese Halliburton for Domantas Sabonis deal again?
But Kyle Kuzma is not Domantas Sabonis.
Oh, I'm not doing that deal for Kuzma, and I'm probably not trading him at all. But if we're talking about OG Anunoby,
if there's a young player available on the Kings, it's not Keegan.
Go ahead, say
it's Davion.
Well, I'm just going to tell you that Tyrese Halliburton wasn't available on like February 7th last year, and then he wasn't on the team afterwards. And again, if you have aspirations to, I'm just saying, like, that's going to be the question. If teams are calling in, they're saying, hey, what's it going to take to get OG Anunoby? The first thing is going to be well, we like Keegan Murray. And it's like, okay, either you hang up the phone really quick.
Untouchable for you.
You can't not for OG, not for 2 years or a year and a player option. So you have this year and next year, right? And then a player option after that.
Yeah, a player option after that.
No. You're rolling. So you're already rolling the dice with Sabonis. And correct me if I'm wrong. OG's the same situation. OG's not going to sign a contract extension. OG's going to hit the market as a free agent. The same thing that's going to happen with Domantas Sabonis. I'm saying no.
Well,
no.
I'm not saying yes. What I'm telling you is that's what it
sounds like you are.
No, I'm saying that's what it could take.
The look on my partner's face is that he's willing to do this.
Yeah. No, I'm not doing that deal. I don't think. I mean, I have to look at the totality of the deal, but I'm not like jumping at anything to make that deal. But I'm just telling you that, like, if you're calling Toronto and asking, now if you're calling Washington and ask from Kyle Kuzma, like, they're going to want a first round pick. But outside of that, like, you're not giving up a bunch of stuff for Kyle Kuzma, and especially he's a rental. Like, you're gonna have such a difficult time keeping him around, and it's like, what are you going to give up to really? That's just selling your soul to try to get to the playoffs one time and hoping that it works, and then hoping that somehow you can keep him afterwards. I just don't buy it. I don't buy that he's going to stick around long term. Where OG Anunoby, I think you could probably convince him to do something longer.
There's speculation that you two have found where Matt Barnes sells those light the beams.
I think people were thinking that it's kind of crazy. Now I'm sitting here. I don't think I'd do the trade, but I don't think it's just a slam dunk. Like I'm hanging up on Toronto.
I'm not hanging up. If I've got them on the phone talking OG, I'm not hanging up. Right, but I'm not ending the conversation with trading Keegan Murray.
I'm not saying that either. But I mean, there's a discussion to be had. Like if
absolutely, we're going to talk you down off of this Keegan Murray thing.
If Masai says, "Look, we can do this deal for Keegan," I'm getting off the phone and I'm talking to my people. I'm like, "I'll call you back, and we'll have a conversation."
Sure, I'll let him think it's possible for a few minutes. I'll hang up the phone and say, "Yo, you hear what this dude said to me?"
You wouldn't. I'm playing devil's advocate right here, but you're adding 19.6 rebound and a defensive player of the year onto your roster. And we're just like, hell no.
No, I'm no.
For Keegan Murray? We're saying hell no to that for Keegan Murray.
I'm just saying no.
You're adding, in all honesty,
Keegan, there's no draft picks involved in.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know. It probably would still cost you one.
But they can't get Keegan and a first round.
You can have Trey Burks.
Oh, damn.
The rights to Trey Burks. You can have that.
Go Blue.
Yeah.
I love Keegan Murray. I think there is balance. There is value in having somebody that's under club control for 6 years at this point, making a certain amount of money. You want to see him grow, things of that nature. Those are all the reasons, and I think he's a good ball player. Those are all the reasons why I wouldn't do it. Or at least right now, I feel like I wouldn't do it. But like I said, you're bringing in 19 points a game, one of the best perimeter defenders in the game. And
Tyrese was, because of De'Aaron, not because of Tyrese, but because of De'Aaron, Tyrese was expendable.
Mm-hmm.
Keegan is not.
But the player you're getting back, you're sure you're not just accelerating what you're doing 3 years? I'm just playing devil's advocate because I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know that I would say yes. And I would have to, like, there'd be like some major soul searching, but when
that's
it comes
coming up on the kingsbeat.com, why James Ham hates Keegan Murray.
Yeah. I am not clickbaiting anyone with that story. But I'll tell you this, OG Anunoby like if we compare him to what Ben Simmons is, or what Ben Simmons was when you were going to trade for Ben Simmons, I would make the argument that the fact that OG can score, the fact that they're equal on defense, he's not the passer, but you don't need that. I would tell you that he is a better fit for the Sacramento Kings than Ben Simmons. Without, I don't even think I would blink and say that. If I had to take one of those two players, especially now, if I had to take one of those two players, because one is owed $130 million still, but
and
like,
he might stink.
Yeah, but I certainly like OG Anunoby. Realistically, is a perfect fit player, and that. So I'm just telling you, like, I'm not saying I would do it. But you know that would be where the Raptors start the conversation, and then you have to go from there. And
I understand that part. I understand that completely.
Yeah, and if you got him, like without giving up Keegan Murray or Harrison Barnes, which is like really, really difficult, but like that requires a phone call to the Atlanta Hawks where you're maneuvering and trying to give up different picks. Like maybe you give up a 2025 and you
See,
offer
that's the thing. Like you can't have Keegan in the pick. You're getting you're getting the fourth overall pick in the draft.
Yeah, I agree. You can't have
you don't get both.
No,
you
absolutely not.
I'll call Atlanta. You can have that. Whatever pick you want, you can have that over Keegan. That's the negotiation right there.
Okay, but I would say this, like, weren't people willing to give up the 2022 first round pick as well as the 24 and the 26
was before he had a name
to get Ben Simmons? I know.
Well,
to get Ben Simmons.
No,
nobody. You were.
Yeah, nobody sane was doing that.
Oh no, I think people were offering up 3 first round picks and Buddy Hield and other stuff for him.
There's
I think
a lot
so.
of insane people out there. I don't dispute that. I'm just saying nobody's saying
that was before the 2022 pick had a name.
Yeah,
his name is Keegan.
Well, I think it would be
him.
It would be really interesting if you could somehow move the Atlanta Hawks pick to the 2025 season and say, look, we'll take the protections off and give you the 2025 and then offer up to 23 and 27. I think you can probably get OG Anunoby. Well, at least if they make him available, I think you can probably get him.
With the 23 Keegan? And 27 without Keegan.
Yeah, without Keegan.
Okay, because I was leaving. I was leaving if we were talking about with Keegan.
Well, it's funny. People think that I'm advocating trading Keegan Murray. I'm not.
That's
I'm
what
not
I'm
saying
hearing.
that at all. No,
I'm
not saying that
3
at all.
times already.
No. I'm saying no. I'm not saying that I know exactly what I would do in that situation, but I'm certainly not advocating for it. I'm just saying that if you make a phone call to Toronto, that is going to be their first ask. They're going to be, oh, okay. Like, we really like the long-term forward pairing of Scotty Barnes and Keegan Murray. So where do we go from here? And the Kings can either hang up the phone or they can go, okay, well, where do we go? Like, let's have an honest discussion on whether we can actually get a deal done. But, you know, again, if you want to make the playoffs, and there's some way you can get a guy like OG Anunoby without giving up Barnes or Keegan Murray. Murray clearly goes to the bench, and like your 3-4 rotation is spectacular, and I like that would be fun to watch. That's what takes the Kings from where they're at right now, which, you know, early in the season I said like the cap is 6, maybe the cap's a little bit higher, but like where they can be in the playoffs. If you were to add OG Anunoby to this team, oh man, I think the cap is higher. I think the cap, like, you can be a legitimate 4, 5, 6 like team in the playoffs. But what do you have to mortgage? How much of the future do you have to mortgage to get there?
Yeah.
If there's any reality to these names that are out there, OG's the biggest, right? Over Collins, over Kuzma.
I think y'all be sleeping on Kuzma.
No, I'm not. I like Kyle Kuzma
specifically.
I think OG.
I think because he wears this long pink sweater, I think people sleep on Kuzma.
No, I think people here sleep on him because he's from the Lakers and he's got a certain
style,
aura. I'm seeing this tweet right now. You know who the most unlikable player in the league is quickly becoming?
Who's that?
That dude in Atlanta.
Yeah,
that dude in Atlanta needs to calm down. He was fined and he tweeted. This is Trae Young for those who haven't caught on to that. Sorry to the Hawks fans who got a chance to touch the game-winning ball. Didn't know I couldn't do that. Can't celebrate stuff anymore. And there's just emojis all over the place. And
Settle
this dude,
down.
he's quickly turning into that heel that he was at Madison Square Garden on WWE program. We're done. I can't believe how quickly this conversation went when we started threatening to trade Keegan Murray. It was just absolutely amazing. I even saw messages that I had to leave the radio to get here in the chat and see what was going on. We appreciate you guys so much for being with us. Check out the kingsbeat.com, Kingsbeat podcast, and we'll see you here tomorrow.